Our conversation with extras from Jurassic World's Hawaii sets concludes with Leota Takuma, followed by film enthusiast and photographer Charlie Chai. Together, they bring this special 10th anniversary discussion of the film to a spectacular close. So, Riona, you were part of the gyrosphere loading station set in Jurassic World, correct?
That's correct. Yes, it was actually filmed on the Kula Ranch, and it was kind of more in the open area, in the grass area. And the filming was done around, I believe it was around March of that year. I think it was 2014. And what was interesting was is that the initial role that I was set up for was actually not the upscale tourist or the rich tourist waiting to ride. It was actually the ride operator. So that was kind of interesting. It was kind of like a last minute change that the casting director had to make. And I was pretty much changed to a upscale tourist because I was Japanese, so they probably wanted some different ethnicity in that shot. But the start of that day was very interesting. I remember it was a clear blue sky day, very sunny, and we there was a, Kula Ranch drive that you had to go up in and park your cars in this dirt area, and that's where the base camp is. And you had to kind of walk this little trail up to this grassy field area, and it was almost surreal. You kind of thought you were in the first Jurassic Park movie because that's kind of this, I believe, close to the area where the first Brontosaurus scene was shot. It was kind of around that area of the hillside, so that was kind of very neat. And there was this little platform that was designed that was supported by a bunch of wood and slats, and there was this rooftop where you would see, I believe, two gyrospheres on a blue metallic track. And it was kind of interesting. When I first got to the set, we were able to kind of have a look at it to see where we were going to stand. And the funny thing was, I was actually going to stand all the way in the back, all the way in the back, meaning I would not be in any of the shot. I would just maybe like an overlooking shot down of the entire area. But when I got close to that gyrosphere to take out the prop, it was very interesting to see that there was no glass bubble. It was just like an open cage system. They did have some motorized track, but it would only go front and back because the rail was cut maybe about 12 foot short. That's how long the tracks were. So Colin Trevor, director, he kind of mentioned that this is going to be a ride. There's going to be no dinosaurs, but your guys are going to be eager to act like you're excited to be on this ride, and the ride's going to be shut down. So you have to kind of be very disappointed when that cue comes into play. So in this shot, what was nice is there was actually our two lead stars, the young boys, which is Ty Simpkins and Nick Robinson. They're both playing the nephew of Claire Dearing. They were pretty much preparing the scene on trying to get next in line ahead of these young girls. All the tourists or the ride goers were pretty much in line, and I was all the way in the back. And I was pretty happy to be on the set. None say I was felt like it's an honor to be here. But at that moment, Colin Trevor, he kind of talked to some ADs, and he actually had one of them come down to me all the way in the back, and I wasn't sure what was going on. Maybe I did something wrong. He said, "Hey, you in the yellow shirt, come all the way to the front." And I was like, "The front?" I was like, "Okay, you know." And so he dragged me all the way to the front and paired with another lady, and I was given some props at that point. And the prop was the red color Nikon digital camera, which was funny to say at least, a digital camera like that in like a futuristic movie, right? He's like, who's carrying a old Nikon camera like this in the Jurassic World Park or something, right? And I was kind of laughing in my head. And then we were given like a tote bag as well as a map. And so I had to kind of be like the husband to this woman that was next to me as a pair in the scene. And we had to kind of look around, be excited for that scene. So the director liked that. Once the director said action, I was pretty much rehearsing in my memory. I used to watch Disney park attraction rides and see how people react when they're lined up and the ride failed, and kind of see the confusion and the frustration. So I remember what I wanted to do in that scene. So there was about like 4 to 5 takes of that scene. And there was a scene where like a gentleman was talking in a different Chinese or Mandarin, he had to ramble off that he couldn't get on the ride, and I had to pretty much do this. Like I kind of got this headache, or I kind of got this like disappointment. I was like, it's like I could have gone to this ride. I was like right there. I was so close when the ride got shut down, right? And so that was kind of my 1 minute of fame right there. It was a very up close shot. I never thought when I saw the final movie cut, I was right in the middle of the screen, and I didn't expect that at all. So I was kind of laughing in my head. But a couple of funny things did happen on set too, which was Ty Simpkins and his brother Nick Robinson. They're kind of like just play fighting each other, and we had a break where we can get ice cream and some snacks. So all of us, we were treated ice cream because it was a hot day, and Ty was looking at his ice cream, and it just fell on the ground. His entire ball of ice cream fell on the ground, and we all saw that, and we all just laughed. And then he was a good sport. He's a good kid, so he was laughing together too. And other funny things on set was the Jurassic World logo plate was on the ride operator booth, and it fell off due to the wind. And it was kind of my first time seeing these kind of high-end sets, but never thought it was just held by double stick tape. And then one of the set guys comes in and he puts more double stick tape on the back and sticks it back onto the booth, and he's like, "It's movie magic, kid." And I had to kind of laugh about that too. When the boys went on to that gyrosphere ride, they hopped in. The gyrosphere was on motorized, so it slowly kind of chugged to the front, and then it exits the scene, and that was a cut. And then they reeled the ride or the gyrosphere back to reset to the retake for the girls too. So that was kind of interesting to see. I thought I was going to be going on this ride too, like the third guy, and we end up getting killed by the dinosaurs in the end or something like that. But I was kind of hoping for that too. But that didn't happen. I had to pretty much stop being the next person in line to jump in, and it's like, oh, ride's closed. And then we were like, ah.
Oh yeah, I remember that moment in the film, like we just like grasped me at your head, like, oh my God. And I don't know why, but you just really stood out. Maybe it was like also the shirt you're wearing. I don't know, you just stood out to me in that scene. So when I realized that I was talking to you, I'm like, oh, it's the guy from the gyrosphere ride. How cool. So the gyrospheres, they didn't have any actual glass around them because that's all CGI'd, right?
That's right. It was actually CGI. The gyrosphere, if you notice, it had all these little ball bearing like design on the rim. That was actually real, and then that's where they mounted a couple of the cameras for the shoot. So that was kind of interesting to see, like a bare bone gyrosphere cage just rolling on this track. And of course, it was on like a small little train track, right? So in the movie, the gyrosphere was actually spinning on its own on the track, I believe. It didn't have any wheels at the bottom, so that was kind of like a nice movie magic where they edited those things out, and I thought that was really cool how it was so seamless in the final cut.
Now, there wasn't really too many props there, except like in the control booth, right, where the ride operator was, like a manual or something that was there. Like, did you get to kind of look up close at anything there, or were you just kind of sanctioned off to the sides, like you cannot pass this point, you can only stay where your mark is, or whatever?
We didn't really have that kind of restriction when I was up in the front. I did take a peek at the booth, like what's behind it, but I think it's pretty much what you saw in the movie. It was just like the mic stand and the button, right? And I think there was a little instruction on that panel, but there wasn't anything like written notes hidden outside of view or anything of that sort. The other prop I forgot to mention that we did, all of us have, was the band. It was like the blue or yellow orange colored band. And of course, our main actors, Ty and Nick, they were like flinging that thing around. They're like hitting each other with that thing, which is kind of funny as well during breaks between the video shoots as well.
It's a good thing that they were able to have fun on set and I guess have fun with you guys as well. And they didn't have any high egos, right? Like they were just, down to earth people. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. And that's kind of nice thing. I think I did talk to Ty and Nick just to say hi or like say thanks for, being part of this. And they was like, yeah, anytime. So just small little talk like that. That's all I did. But then I didn't want to interrupt their job because everyone was here to do their job. So try not to interrupt as many as or as much as possible. So that was kind of the mindset I had when I was on this set. When we filmed this shot, all props had to be returned, and I was one of those guys that didn't take pictures of on set because I was trying to be respectful and all that. I wish I did take shots, but I didn't take any of the props home, and the lady that was standing next to me, who she kind of acted like my partner, was kind of funny. She'd keep opening and closing the map. At the end of the day of the shoot, it pretty much like broke into like two pieces. So it was kind of funny. At the very last scene of their take, the map was barely holding on. So other thing interesting about that Kualoa Ranch day was going back home. That kind of actually was more of the real Jurassic Park experience for me personally. So what happened was is the morning shot was from 10 a.m. I believe, and it actually went all the way to midnight, believe it or not. It actually went really dark. And I believe the casting folks and all the background extra people started wrapping up around 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. I think around that time, and everyone had their good food, and I got some of the nice marlin steak. It was really nice, really nice, good food. All the lobster was gone. So then I just grabbed whatever that was left because I was one of the last bunch that cut to get off from the set. And now I didn't have a car that night, so I actually had a friend that was going to pick me up on Kula Ranch all the way by the highway. So if you're not familiar with Kula Ranch, you're pretty much in the woods in a forest, and you have to pretty much walk down a trail, and it's like a tall grass trail, and there's supposed to be a gate at the very end of the park area where it goes straight into the highway, but there's no lights. And this was back in 2014, and I didn't know better to have a flashlight on me. And it got so dark, everything was pitch black. All I had was my phone that was running on like 7% battery at that day. And I had to turn on the flashlight mode that I didn't want to because I needed to get in touch with my friend. So I turned on a flashlight and I was walking down this really dark path and it was pitch black. And all I could see was just the ground. And then I was told by one of the folks on set that there are some wild pigs that's kind of running around. So just, watch out for that. So I was walking down this pitch black path. I only could see my foot, and there's tall grass to the left and right of me. And it just looked like one of those scenes where I'm trying to like run away from a velociraptor or something. And then, of course, I did hear a rustling in the bush because it was only me on the road. And that actually jumped me because it was actually a warthog that just ran past through the tall grass. It felt actually like a real velociraptor was like trying to pounce on me or kill me, right? So, or eat me up. That was actually pretty nerve-wracking. It was actually kind of scary, to be honest. You walk down about 5 minutes through that dense tall grass just to find this gate to go onto the highway, and that's where my friend was waiting for me to pick me up at like 3 or 4 in the morning. So that was kind of a fun part of that day.
You're just running to them screaming, right?
You know,
It's like,
I
oh
was
my
kind of
God.
nervous that day because wild pigs, warthogs, they will run into you and they kind of might push you to the side or knock you down.
That is very scary.
That was a fun experience after that day too. Yeah, it felt more real than the set.
Yeah, no, definitely. Forget raptors. Kind of like that scene in the movie, Pig Loose, Pig Loose. It's like, oh my God. No kidding.
Yeah, but that was the set at Kula Ranch. It was a really memorable experience. A lot of the folks I met there were really nice people, and we had a really great time working through the shoot. We didn't do too many retakes, which was really nice for that day. So everything was shot on that same day, and we were able to go home. Wanted to also bring up the other deleted scene for Jurassic World, which was the convention center scene. So I was also cast as another tourist. The Hawaii Convention Center was converted into some kind of a large housing center for all the visitors that needed to escape, and they were all just kind of like trapped and stuck there. So if you've seen pictures online of the Hawaii Convention Center, the main entrance where the glass doors are, where you see the two tall escalators, that whole section was filled up from left to right. So that was a lot of people. And some of the interesting things were it wasn't just tourists that was in that scenario, but there was also like paramedics, and there was also people who were like the Jurassic World
staffs who wore their uniforms, and they kind of were holding something that looked like I believe it's like a tranquilizer gun or a stun gun like device. So there were a couple of those guys in the wall sections of the whole lobby area, and pretty much the scenario was we were just trapped there. We couldn't even move. And I was standing on top of the two escalator area. So I was in the middle of the escalator area. The director then comes out and say, okay, so the scene is going to be you guys are trying to leave the island, but you're stuck. And then in the next moment, you will hear dinosaur stomping. So we need you guys to kind of feel braced for that shockwave or the dinosaurs stomping around nearby. You're all going to visualize and imagine a amazing thing happening outside the window. And so that scene is supposedly the two dinosaurs are fighting outside that entire building. So I think the setting was more like one dinosaur, Didymus Rex, was coming towards us outside.
So you're saying that there was a scene where the Indominus Rex is supposed to like approach the hotel, basically, the hotel lobby from the outside, and you guys are kind of just reacting to it passing
Right.
by. I don't think I've ever heard anyone mention that before. That's actually pretty interesting. Wow.
So the funny thing about that whole thing is that the dinosaur fighting outside, of course, we don't have any props or we don't have any visual cues on that. So everyone was kind of acting on their own and imagining what's going on out there. So the funny part is that when the stomping supposedly started, the director pretty much gave a cue when there's a stomp. Then everyone pretty much fell to the ground or kind of over exaggerated that whole scene. And so they kind of acted like a magnitude 6.5 earthquake, for example. Like people are just like toppling down, people are just losing balance. And that did not look as realistic, to be honest. I was just on the escalator, just grabbing hold of the railing, and you don't have to really move a lot if something is stomping outside, right? But then you got people in front of me and back of me who just lost their complete balance and just falling all over the place, which was very unrealistic. And it was funny, to be honest. And then I had full view of the people who was down on the first floor, the main lobby area. The monorail terminal was also there. That whole area, everyone was kind of like trembling and kind of falling over and losing balance. So it rather looked more like a earthquake movie than a Jurassic World movie. We heard Dirk go cut. And then the next thing we did was we were shuffled into the first floor and we kind of made it look like the whole terminal or lobby area looked larger. So more people had to be allocated to be on the first floor and some other areas. And pretty much we did the same thing over and over. Overall fun day. I thought we would see that scene to be used in some form, but unfortunately, it mostly got cut out because I think there was just too much body exaggeration from a lot of the extras falling over, toppling over, losing balance, and I think it just definitely didn't look too realistic with what was really going on. So it would have been nice to see the whole thing, though, but then it may have not made a lot of sense for that particular scene.
Interestingly enough, before the movie's first trailer came out, I was given a really awful recording of like an early pre-visualization version of the trailer, and it had some alternate shots that aren't in the movie or other trailers for that matter. And one of them, and it's hard to really make out because it's such bad quality, but you can kind of see it's a big group of people that I believe are in that lobby, and they're all kind of like leaping back and they look kind of like surprised expressions from what I can see. So I think that's got to be a shot from that scene.
I think so. It definitely is, yeah. Another point to make out is apparently the escalators were not moving. So that was kind of interesting. You know, for safety reasons, they probably shut it off. But as a trivia, the Hawaii Convention Center is also known for that escalator to break down and not work if there's a lot of people on it. So that's kind of like the inside joke about the escalator not moving. So that, I would say that was kind of realistic in that sense, unintendedly. When Hawaii hosts a lot of convention centers and a lot of people go on the escalator, it always breaks down. So I could say maybe that's why the escalators were not moving in that scene because of that same reason. If you go on Google to look at the Hawaii Convention Center, that's actually is like the visitors' information booth. So they did actually decorate that with Jurassic World maps and the logos and wording. So relatively, that building for the shoot, it didn't get changed drastically, which is kind of interesting because the main design of that building already kind of has that Jurassic World park or hotel like feel to it already, so which is kind of interesting. So not a whole lot of props or a whole lot of changes were really made to that area.
Yeah, no, I think they slapped a bunch of Hilton logos all over the place because there's no Hilton there, right?
Yeah, not in that area.
It was integrated pretty well though, like you said, like it did definitely fit in with the atmosphere of the park for that movie.
Mhm.
And I also wish, I don't know where they shot like the interior of the Hilton hotel room that you see when, the kids get their wristbands and Zach's like, "Oh, I don't want to wait anymore." And then opens the doors and you get the view. That's part of the Hilton, but I'm like, I don't know if they filmed that in New Orleans or Hawaii in the convention center somewhere, or they found a Hilton and were like, here. They really decked it out to have that Costa Rican kind of feel and even have fake skeletons and like pictures of skeletons and stuff like that. And it was a pretty cool hotel room. Like, oh, that I wish that was real somewhere.
You know, as a side note, I would say if there was a hotel theme after Jurassic Park or Jurassic World, similar to like how Disneyland has Aulani here in Hawaii, that would sell.
Oh,
That
yeah.
would sell good.
Yeah, Universal needs to look into that, right?
Yeah, the other funny part is like my friends who watched, both movies, right? They're like, "Oh, I wonder if Yota lives in the second movie," and then like, nope, we're just gonna call it. He probably died with all the other dinosaurs because he couldn't get out of that freaking terminal or whatever that hotel is.
Oh,
So I
God.
was like, yeah, I think that's canon.
We'll make it so. Why not? I mean, what is canon these days anyway? Who knows? Now, Charlie, you weren't an extra on the set, but you are what I would call the undercover photographer to preserve these sets for all time in the form of pictures. So, like, what inspired you to do that?
Well, I think because when I was in school, just seeing like the different production trucks that would park along the street when I was at school, or even when I started going to work, and then seeing, oh, what are all these no parking signs on the street? And then, oh, there's this production. Oh, that seems pretty interesting. And then kind of waiting over there and seeing the people and then the free food that they're giving out for catering. But and just talking to the people because there's a lot of downtime on set where they're resetting up and getting to talk to some of the crew people. And then so I think the first one's like Hawaii 5 like during the season finale, seeing that process and getting to be able to sit really close to the scenes. I think like 10 or 20 feet away, they're like the main actors are over there filming their scenes. And then the crew was really fine with me just sitting next to the extras. So in the background, and just that was just really fun watching these cool scenes take place and then seeing that scene not making it into the episode or into the in the film, right? And it only being in your memory or unless you took pictures during the day on the day, right? So that kind of inspired me to be more involved with film and then have that as kind of like my hobby when I'm not working. So either like during my lunch break or after work. And a lot of the Jurassic World stuff that happened was either I took those pictures during my lunch break or after I finished work. I think the first set was the zoo. So that was during my work break. I from lunch, I'd go to Honolulu Zoo, and then they had hours from 10 to 4. So I was able to go in. The zoo was open like normal, and they just had blocked off certain areas. Like I think just elephant enclosure and another area. But during the time I had, I couldn't really get as close as I wanted to, since I know like in the zoo there's a big open area towards the back where you could see the elephant enclosure, which happened to be where they were filming. But I didn't know that at the time, so I was mainly taking pictures of the banners that I could see. But a lot of the pictures I got from the zoo were actually after. So after work, I went over there and on Montserrat Avenue. They had all the production trucks, and I got to see all the extras walking by in the Jurassic World staff uniforms and the maintenance workers with their hard hats on, like this white one over here. And I actually had a friend who was one of those maintenance workers. That was pretty cool to see. all the props that they had out, and that was like the first time seeing all the Jurassic World props. So kind of next to those same maintenance workers were this silver buckets and little items that said things like Dino Poop Kit and Break Room. So I wasn't sure what those are about. But I think actually, if you look at the website, they might have had those scenes in there, just showing those maintenance workers working in, kind of cleaning up after the dinosaurs.
Yeah, I remember the website did both versions of it, where like they had the recording of them just kind of working in that area, and then also in the breakout, them kind of like getting up from their table and running away, like, oh no, the Indominus.
Yeah, and then I also came back another time when they're having the media kind of press part to promote the movie later on, and they actually did set up that setup a little bit more in the zoo. And then since it was just for media, I was able to get closer and just see different signs on the wall next to the elephant enclosure. It wasn't set up as much as it was during filming, but it did have some of the signs and some of the illustrations for how that set was supposed to look in the movie, including like the concept illustration and then the final screen capture that they had up. I think that day, that first day of shooting was the one where, wow, look at all these cool props because for other things that we're shooting in Hawaii, they weren't really making like these kind of props. It was more like normal everyday things like different storefront signs because they couldn't use the regular storefront or they had to make menus or things like that. But this is our first time to see like a fully functioning theme park. And for the extras that worked on this, that was like real during that time there. And I just wanted a way to capture that and kind of relive that moment of seeing that, even though I wasn't able to be an extra on the set, even though I did go to the open call. But it was just good to see that. And then I was able to make it happen. So it was really fun.
So you were able to get really close to these sets and see them from different angles that, is great because they're now gone forever. And do you remember any scenes from either Jurassic World or Fallen Kingdom that didn't make it into the movie?
Sort of hard to see because I don't really understand the plot, like because I can't really hear what they're saying or see that process. So it's more like seeing those sets and then kind of documenting the sets and taking pictures of the different set decoration that's up is more like what I could see because I couldn't see a lot of what they were filming. Maybe like at the convention center, so I was across the street, so like on Kapi'olani Boulevard, and the convention center is right across the street with the big open windows, right? So I could see everything in there.
So the deleted scene from Jurassic World that Ryota described, you were actually the one that took, unbeknownst to you, video footage of it from the street, right? So what was it like to capture that moment unexpectedly?
Yeah, I think that was the only thing major set action that was taking place because most of the time, like from the angle that I was at, I couldn't really see too much going on. It was mainly just people, like when they're in the smoke break, they would step out in front and I could see them come out. But otherwise, it's kind of like a bad angle. So that was like the only time when I saw all the people running that I could actually see some action taking place in that area. I think the rest was filmed off to the side or like maybe in another room. So that was really cool to see that. And then I did realize later on that was going to be cut, and then that was the scene that Rota was in because I couldn't see him from that angle, but it was like from the escalator, yeah. But it's pretty cool to see. Other than that, it was more like taking in the set decoration that a lot of the times when you're filming your shots, you might not see everything in the set, but they put all that attention to detail in anyway, just in case you never know that they might change the angle and shoot that side of the set, right? So, and a lot of that, we don't have really good footage of those set decoration, those props. And then as you can see, like I'm really into the props. So a lot of the props are being auctioned after the movie was released. So that's kind of where I built it up over the years after the movie wrapped. Just getting that detail and seeing like all the attention to detail and even people who make their own versions of based on what they see on scene. And then I think like taking pictures on set gives helps those people as well kind of get more detail because you're just taking that 4K or 1080 like footage on screen and trying to recreate that. But when you get real good footage, you can see more detail in what goes into that, making those props work. I did want to talk about the ferry since there was a scene, if you remember in Jurassic World, where they board the ferry. So they take the American Airlines flight, I believe, and it lands in Costa Rica. And then there's like short, like two shots of that boarding ramp from Costa Rica. And that was filmed at Pier 6 by Aloha Tower area. So I'm going into work and every morning I see that area where they're filming because that's the normal place where that boat docks. The Navitec one because they do like lunch and dinner cruises, right? So they pick up the customers there and they take them into the ocean. So I didn't think anything about it, but then like when I went for my lunch break and walked out, I saw, if you remember in Jurassic World, that boat ramp, they have a little banner saying Isla Nublar on it. So I saw them removing that off. So then I walked over there and there's a power plant nearby, with a guard there. So I asked him, "Did you see any a boat with a dinosaur on it?" And she said yes. So then, I just missed it. But that was so cool because that was like the closest to my. I didn't need to travel to get there because I could like it was like right across the street and I didn't even realize it. But that was it's so cool to see that because they're not filming like in the jungle. Like they're not at Kualoa Ranch for a lot of these scenes. They're like convention center that's in like Honolulu. The zoo is also in Honolulu. So it's like very accessible areas where normally like if you're just working, you wouldn't be able to access them all the times. So it's really cool to be able to visit some of these sets and see production happening.
What are the chances? Like you could just hop on the next boat to Isla Nublar right now, right?
And unfortunately, I never got to ride on it because I think it was maybe 2016, 2018, they stopped that cruise over there and then they have a different boat now. So but I did see that the Lost World one also. That one was pretty bad. It was in I think it's the harbor by Alawai. So like right in Waikiki. So like right off your Waikiki, you see the Lost World boat just sitting there and it's just falling apart. And they're just it was like up for auction and nobody was interested in it. So I guess they just trashed it, unfortunately.
Oh man. I mean, I guess it's hard if it's kind of out of commission, like where are you gonna put it? Even though it's kind of a piece of film history, it's like, yeah, where's it gonna go?
Oh, one thing I don't know if we mentioned for the Dominus Rex paddock, the way they shot it, it makes it look a lot bigger because they didn't build the whole paddock. So I noticed like when you go there, there's like they use like different sections of the wall. So when they're running from one side or the other, it's just like they're shooting here for this section and then turn it a little bit for this other shot to make it look like the paddock's a lot bigger than the construction they actually built. So you can see that when you go there, I believe, still.
It's another piece of the movie magic, right? I remember seeing them trying to hide like some of the vehicles. It's kind of hard to hide everything, right? Even though there was no animatronics, unfortunately, except for the one at Patasaur. But where was that filmed exactly?
Yeah, so that was filmed on the Kauai set. So we weren't, I don't think any of the extras were over there. It's mainly the main cast that was shooting on Kauai. Because most of the scenes here were on Oahu, yeah, on this island. So all the big scenes with all the extras were over there. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see a lot of animatronics on this one, but there were a lot on Fallen Kingdom. They had the blue Velociraptor animatronic. So I remember I was at East Dock, so we can talk about that a little bit. So for East Dock was filmed at Kaneohe Bay, the little boat ramp area over there. So Pu'uma Eli Eli Trail, actually, if you go to the top and get that pillbox, you have a perfect view of the East Dock area, what they use as East Dock. And over there, I think the first day I went, they were shooting the Stegosaurus scene. So they had that big Stegosaurus animatronic there. That was pretty cool to see as well. Because especially because for the first film, we didn't really see any dinosaurs. From what I heard at the zoo, they had those triceratops that people were riding on, but it sounded like they were just actors. And then the kids would sit on them and ride them around. And then in post production, they'd kind of put those triceratops in actually.
With Fallen Kingdom, they recreated the same set from Jurassic World that was in Main Street in New Orleans, then instead brought it to Hawaii and plopped it there in a ruined state because it's supposed to be years later when it's left abandoned. So I just find it really interesting that they chose to do that. In a way, it's like, why didn't they just build Main Street in Hawaii in the first place for the original Jurassic World? maybe they had their reasons, but it's kind of interesting that the Fallen Kingdom Main Street set in Hawaii was only for a really brief moment in the movie, honestly. So was it kind of crazy to see such a detailed set hardly show up in the final picture?
Yeah, it was because I remember seeing it. So it was filmed on the North Shore on one of the beaches there. So I believe they filmed Lost over there too. But so it's right next to some turtles that are just hanging out on the beach, and then you could see the set from the beach. So it was really they didn't do the whole main street, just like the main alleyway. Um, but it was really detailed because they had to make it look like it was destroyed because of after what happened in Jurassic World, right? That destroyed set. So like Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville's that second floor is coming down onto the front, and then you have like the Jurassic Traders, the store is broken and the toys are on the floor. And it was really cool to see all that weathering being done because in the first film, even though it was filmed on New Orleans, but it was really pristine and clean looking. So it's a big contrast. And then especially if for prop people, they really like doing the weathering. So it was really cool to see the set in that state and all the damage and destruction that was you can see the result of all that dinosaur battling that happened in the finale of the first film on set. I think the main thing that was unfortunate is that they were filming it on North Shore, so I knew that set wasn't going to last. So wanted to get out there before they struck the set and take some pictures of that just to document it. And because especially in the final film, you don't get to see a lot of that footage there, so it was really cool to see it. My main favorite parts of that set were seeing the Spinosaurus skeleton and as well as the T-Rex kingdom, of course.
Yeah, and speaking of the T-Rex Kingdom, it's really cool that they were so precise with details from the New Orleans version of the set that they even had the exact same signage, according to Brent, who was part of the New Orleans set. Just that kind of level of detail, to recreate the exact signage, even though I don't even think you see that part of the set in the film. So it's just really, really cool that they were able to recreate it so faithfully.
Yeah.
I know during that time, I think you were lucky enough to have also met Bryce Dallas Howard and Chris Pratt, right?
Yeah, so what happened was they're filming kind of like by Sandy Beach, Halona Blowhole area. So they're filming a cliff scene with a practical cliff, but they were doing a CG extension for that. So we could see it from the side of the highway. So if you're familiar with that location, it's basically a cliff and a road, and then the parking area on the other side. So it's pretty dangerous for us to be watching because it wasn't just me; it was a few other people, fans, kind of watching them film. So we could wave to the cast and then they'd say hi back. It was that close. So it was fun to see. But then I know Bryce and Chris were kind of saying, oh, you guys should go to base camp and wait for us there because it's a bit safer. So that's after that filming, we kind of went down when it started getting dark and less safe, and then went to base camp. And then they're fine meeting us, taking pictures. And then I did see Chris's son over there. So coming out of his trailer and taking pictures with everyone. So that was really fun, and everyone just really nice meeting them. Just good to see people like on set and like knowing the people in the crew. So I think the crew knows me, and like even the shirt I'm wearing is a film crew shirt just from knowing people and then being hanging out on set all the time, even though I'm not working it. I only worked like extras a couple of times in background, but it's just fun to be part of that environment and be like seeing all these people working together to make a production really come together and seeing the end result on screen.
Oh yeah, and the pictures that you took are important to me because sets are there and gone, never to be seen again usually. So that the fact that you're able to capture, that moment in time, I think is actually really important.
Jurassic World and its sequel, Fallen Kingdom, were the last entries in the franchise to be filmed in Hawaii. The following films would depart to other locations around the globe, and it's uncertain if we will ever return. One can't deny that Jurassic World brought a franchise back from extinction. After a decade, hearing memories from the film's extras made me recall the excitement and fun that Jurassic World brought to my life. Learning more about the incredible sets with detailed images and footage made me appreciate the artistry even more. It truly feels like a real place. And for Jurassic World's extras, it was. For the rest of us, every fan has their own special stories of what the entire Jurassic Park series means to them. And it's in these stories that life has truly found a way to bring us all together. This has been Derrick Davis.